Good morning. Welcome to the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. I'm Tony Haggerty, a Haggerty10 Twitter handle, as you can see, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Herald sports writer Graeme McGarry. How you doing, Graeme?
I'm doing well, thanks, Tony. Mate, yourself?
I'm very well, very well. Calm before the storm, as they say, Graeme.
Yep.
Celtic head to Pittodrie tonight, still looking to stay 1 point ahead of the chasing pack. And yourself and myself were at Fir Park on Sunday. Watched a complete dismantling of Motherwell after the dismantling of Rangers. It's all going well for Celtic at the present, isn't it? And they travel to Pittodrie, I would have thought, confident of getting a result.
Yeah, I mean, I think it might be time to sort of bin the cliches about difficult venues and places to go, because when you look at these fixture lists, the fixture list at the present, you would think that, Fir Park and then Pittodrie, that's quite a daunting double header in years gone past. And Motherwell and Aberdeen have both given, Celtic and Rangers difficult fixtures over the years. But the kind of ease at which Celtic swept Motherwell aside at the weekend there, and then honestly, the form that Aberdeen are in at the moment, you can't really see another outcome tonight. So, in years gone past, you might have been looking at Pittodrie and thinking, that's a banana skin.
Mhm.
But I think Celtic will be approaching this one fully confident, and anything other than a kind of straightforward Celtic win, I think, would be a major surprise.
Now, Graeme, as I say, we watched them on Sunday. We watched them against Rangers last Wednesday, and it was the nature of the first half which won the game for them.
Yeah.
3 goals in the first half, job done. And obviously they didn't add to that tally against Rangers, but scored another one against Motherwell. But it seems to be the way at the minute, isn't it, that they are being a bit more clinical. And just spoken about that, being ruthless and clinical, and they've certainly turned up and did that in the past couple of games.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke before the Old Firm game, Tony, and we were saying that that was Celtic's one failing this year, if there was one, was that they weren't clinical enough. But they've really turned that around, and they turned it on against Rangers. The first half against Motherwell, actually, you could argue they weren't that clinical at Motherwell because they did miss 4 or 5 good chances as well. It could have been 6 or 7 at half time. And I guess against Rangers, you could say that too. But they did take, enough of the chances to make the second halves in both those games a formality. But yeah, Ange being the sort of perfectionist that he is, I know that he was kind of saying after the game, yeah, we did take some of our chances, but there is room for improvement there still. You could be putting teams to bed 4 and 5, maybe 6 before half time if they'd taken some of the really good chances they created. And but for Liam Kelly on Saturday, certainly that could have been 7 or 8-0 by the end. I think the pleasing thing for Ange will be, though, people were talking a couple of weeks ago about a second half drop-off with Celtic. They would come out in the blitz teams, and then, we saw it, I think, against Hibs was probably the best example of that at Celtic Park. But that's, the deeper the squad's got and the more options he now has, I think we'll see that sort of going away now. I think Celtic will be just as strong moving into the kind of final half an hour, final 20 minutes as they have been throughout games, because you just need to look at Sunday there, you've got Matt O'Reilly and Jota coming on when Celtic are 3-0 up, and that just gave the whole thing a new impetus again. So I think, not that there was any worries about that, but any concerns are, about Celtic dropping off a wee bit in the second half. I think in the next few games we'll see that, being addressed, because Ange has now got the personnel to keep a kind of fresh set of players on the pitch all game, especially with the 5 subs now we can use.
Now, Graeme, you touched on it there, personnel. That's the big thing for Ange now.
Yeah.
I put my team up on the Celtic way this morning, and if memory serves, it was Hart, Juranovic, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Starfield, McGregor, Hatate,
Miss Taylor.
Taylor, yeah. McGregor, Hatate, and Rogic, and Jota, Abada, and it was Maeda at centre forward, rather than Giakoumakis. Don't know if you agree with that team, but I just thought it might be a wee bit of need for some subtlety at Pittodrie, and I just sort of thought funnily enough, when O'Reilly came on and Maeda played through the middle, he was very lightning quick to latch onto that chance. Yeah. I think that's kind of through ball that Tom Rogic could maybe find Maeda with tonight. I don't know if you agree with that or you would play Giakoumakis, but that was the way I was thinking, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, I can see your logic. You look at the Aberdeen backline, and it's physical, big physical centre halves. Giakoumakis did a great battle on Sunday, I thought, with Bevis McGarry and Motherwell. That was brilliant, and he stood right up to it. The likes of David Bates tonight might try and do the same thing if he's up against Giakoumakis. But I do think when Maeda moved to a central position against Motherwell, he was far more effective.
Yeah.
And that type of player with that type of movement against the likes of David Bates, I think would probably give them more trouble. The Aberdeen defenders would quite like to be in a physical battle.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I can see a reasoning behind that. I think, Ange surprised us all, I think, on Sunday. I didn't think he would have swapped out Juranovic because he was sensational against Rangers. But it worked out. And, Anthony Ralston has been a revelation this season. But I think you're right. I think Juranovic comes back in for this game. And certainly, I think Jota comes back in as well. But yeah, I can't find too much fault in your team there, Tony. I think, but Ange might surprise us all again. The great thing is how you go about, trying to reason that Matt O'Reilly's not in there because
you can't.
In the first two games that he played, and you saw when he came on Sunday. I don't think he enjoyed being out of the team. He seemed to come on with a real point to prove, and I guess that's what Ange wants from all his players. But then how do you leave out Tom Rogic after his performance on Sunday? So that's the reason why Ange has paid the big bucks and we're no, Tony. But
I would never try and second guess him, but I have to for every game. I have to put a predicted lineup, so I have to try and think. I did not too bad, to be fair. Apart from the Alaba one, where I don't think anybody would have predicted that team. But yeah, as you say, that's the calls that he's making. But how can you leave out Rogic? O'Reilly's not done much wrong, as you've just touched on there. Giakoumakis hasn't done much wrong, but I get the fact that I think Andy's a very practical manager, and he's a bit of a horses for courses kind of guy, isn't he? And he kind of knows the way he wants to play in every game. I know he plays a 4-4-3-3 system, but it's certain players that he wants to do certain things, and that's why I think Jota will come back in. And I've just got a feeling he'll play with Maeda because I just think that'll be the way to cut Aberdeen open, rather than go with a big physical battle with Giakoumakis. I'm on board with that. That was my logic. That was my thinking behind it.
Yeah, another thing in favour of the argument to play Maeda is that Giakoumakis has been at the kind of business end of three really kind of energy sapping battles in the last week. If you start for Tynecastle, actually last week and a half. So he had Tynecastle, he had Rangers, then he had Fir Park, where he was scrapping away with the defenders in every one of those games. So this might be a good time just to kind of bring him out. Maeda's fresher. He's obviously been away, but he's bled him in quite slowly. And I think there might be an argument for going with him tonight, especially as you say, maybe not just the freshness, but his movement. I think will trouble the Aberdeen defence.
I tell you what, I'm not having, Graeme. I'm not having Maeda claiming that as his second goal in Celtic.
It's a shot on target, Tony. So
right, okay, we're calling that a shot on.
Dubious goals panel have given him it, I'm afraid. So.
Well, my personal dubious goals panel has convened, and he's not getting that. I mean, that's like playing remote control football from the stand and directing it in with a joystick. It's one of them. Lie there and celebrate as if he'd scored a screamer.
Well, listen, the attacker wants it, the defender doesn't. So, I mean, I'm a generous man. I would give him it as his second goal. And
I'm being flippant, of course.
The Motherwell boy doesn't want it, so let's just let him have
it. I'm being flippant, but there you go. We'll see if he claims it. Now, take some comments here, Graeme. A lot of people commenting in the chat. Frank Brennan, morning Frank, how you doing? Yes, indeed, 5 subs is playing into our hands, but I'm not a fan of multiple substitutions all at once. That only often disrupts the flow and momentum, even if they are dead in their feet. But I think the 5 substitutes rule is helping teams like Celtic because they can freshen up game, and now they have a bench worthy of the name, whereas Ange didn't have that luxury earlier in the season. Players are coming back, and there's healthy competition for places now, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm a wee bit surprised the rest of the league voted for it, I've got to be honest, because I think it does give the bigger teams an advantage, and Celtic are absolutely right to be using that advantage. And now when you look at the Celtic bench, you can basically bring on half another team and the level won't drop. If anything, you're bringing on players who maybe are even better than the ones you're taking off in some cases. So, I mean, Callum McGregor touched on that yesterday. spoke to him about the Motherwell goalie, Liam Kelly, saying, it's 3-0 down, and you look over at the sidelines and you see some of these boys coming on. He's like, you're just asking the manager to take you off. You're like, what's next? So I think that does work in Celtic's favour, but I definitely take Frank's point. I'm a wee bit old school. I understand the players have got a hectic schedule, but I do think, a lot of subs does disrupt the rhythm of the game. The good thing is, on the flip side of that, is that, you've only got the 3 windows to make the subs. So it's not like a friendly where every 2 minutes you're looking over and there's another sub coming on. But I think the pleasing thing from Angie's perspective will be that even when he is bringing on these subs, it isn't really disrupting the rhythm of the Celtic team too much as yet. We'll see if it bears out in time. But at the moment, they just seem to be carrying on. Or if anything, it's helping them finish the games a wee bit stronger.
Now, Ian Tulloch comes in. I'm an Aberdeen fan, really fear for us tonight. I'll stick my neck on the line and say 4 or 5-0 Celtic. That's a bold prediction, Ian. I think most Celtic fans would just take the win. First and foremost, Graeme, just take care of their business and keep their noses in front at the top of the table.
Of course, but I mean, as I touched on earlier, I think Ian, unfortunately for him, has probably got a point there. Aberdeen haven't been playing well. I actually watched their game on Saturday against Livy, and they were poor. They like to try and keep the ball, but similar with Hibs, I think at the moment they've got a lot of possession with no real purpose, and they'll find it tricky to get the ball tonight, obviously, because Celtic like to play that game and they're just better at it. But the good thing about Celtic is the difference between Aberdeen and Celtic is when Celtic get the ball, there's a clear plan. They're going forward with it. They're attacking quickly. They're not having possession for possession's sake, and I think that's Aberdeen's problem. And I have to agree with you. Unfortunately for him, I think this is going to be a carbon copy of what happened at Fir Park. I think it's going to be maybe 2-3 at half time and maybe 4-5 by the end.
Now, Andrew Gillea comes in and says, Giakoumakis is doing enough for me. That's in relation to my saying that start with Maeda. Andrew Hunter comes in, once he gets a few, his confidence will grow.
Yep.
And Sean Curran says, agree, Giakoumakis is working hard. A bit unfortunate over the last few games, Gus says it'll fall into place for him, just a matter of time. And Andrew comes back in and says, Aberdeen are poor at the moment, yep. And Paradise 60 said, Dons are awful, an easy win tonight. A lot of confidence in there, Graeme. And then Frank comes back in and says, Brief's a proven goal scorer to GG who's now not scoring goals, is, like it or not, never ever doing enough. Well, that's, people see it differently and all different ways, but I think it's, I think first and foremost, you keep your feet on the ground, and talk of 4 and 5s is all fine and well, but you've got to just take care of business. I mean, I think Celtic supporters would take one, but the way they're playing, they are creating a lot of chances to score those goals, as you say, Graeme.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Celtic's away record, which was the big kind of bone of contention at the start of the season when they lost against Hearts, Livy and Rangers away. Since that Aberdeen game the last time when they won 2-1, they've not lost away from home domestically. They've won 9 out of 10. They've only drawn 1, which was the 0-0 at St Mirren when they were missing a host of players. So, I don't see that confidence is misplaced, though. I think the guys who are really confident here in the comments are probably spot on. I can't really... Yeah. I mean, I know pride comes before the fall and all that, but I can't really see a way that Aberdeen can trouble Celtic tonight. I think their pace, their movement is just going to be too much. And the way that Celtic are playing at the moment, I don't think anyone in this league can probably live with them, as we saw. I mean, Rangers are a good team. They haven't lost. I think Graeme Alexander pointed this out at the weekend. They'd lost 1 out of 62, 63 games, and they were made to look like any other mid-ranking SPFL Premiership opposition at Celtic Park. So if Rangers can't get near them and can't lay a glove on them, I don't fancy Aberdeen's chances. So, I mean, I'm on the train with the boys here. I think I think it's going to be a kind of straightforward affair tonight.
On the Ange train. Now, it will be 7. If they win, it will be 7 wins in a row since the restart after the winter break. And it'll also be 24 domestic games beaten. Graeme, I mean, you can't argue with those stats. That's why Celtic top of the table. Yeah,
and you've got to remember where Celtic came from this season. Do you know, like, to get to this place in such short order is... I know everybody's, waxing lyrical about Ange just now, and I don't want to come across as a fanboy or anything like that, but you've got to give him his due. the squad at the start of the season was a bit of a shambles, and to bring that many players in, not only in the summer but then in January, and get them hitting the ground running, there's only one factor behind that, and it's got to be him, and you've got to give him immense credit for where he's got Celtic to be playing with this. Not only the kind of flair that they're playing with and the attractive football and all the rest of it, but it's the consistency, as you say, Tony, that's been really impressive. And even in games where maybe it's not quite clicking the way it is, they're always finding a way. You look at the Dundee United game, which I think is going to be a massively pivotal moment in this season. You're down to 10 men, you're in the 92nd minute, you still find a way to win the game. And I think it's the combination of the attractive football, the structure they've got, and the mentality that Ange's put into them that makes Celtic, such a formidable opposition for anyone at the moment.
I wrote on the Celtic Way recently that 2 last-minute goals, Graeme, could be a real pivotal moment in the season. One at Dingwall, and that one that day, the same day, against Dundee United, with 10 men. They just kept going, and kind of bearing out the words of the first ever mic'd up session, "We never stop." That was, and that's kind of, they're a bit relentless just now, Celtic at the minute, and that's what's wearing teams down, because they just keep going, especially in the first half. They're just pulverising teams in the first half, aren't they? And you wonder if that is a kind of instruction, if they can put it to bed early, get it done.
Yeah, you look at the last minute goals they scored. You talk about Dingwall, you talk about the one against Dundee United. Some people look at that from the outside and they'll say that's luck. That's a bit lucky they've come up with that. It's not. They've worn these teams down by playing their football, and then eventually they're going to crack.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually these boys are tired. The defenders are tired. I think the Dundee United one was the best example of that. The guy just completely switches off, and Maeda is as sharp as a tack still in the 92nd minute, and cool as well to put it away. So, obviously Ange would prefer to win these games by half time, and he'll have been a much more relaxed manager, I'm sure, than the last couple of games than he was against Dundee United. But we still find a way, and it's more by design than by luck that they're getting these wins. You can't take anything away from them at the moment. They're finding ways to win, and the way they're winning the last 2 games, is a bit easier on the old heart, I'm sure, for the Celtic fans.
But you say it's that hunger and desire and application and attitude that comes from the top, isn't it? It's coming from the manager, and even the guys that aren't playing want to make their impact when they came on. You saw that with Jota and O'Reilly on Sunday. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, if you're bringing Jota, I think Jota's probably been, I know Kyogo took a lot of the headlines, and he's been fantastic, but I think Jota's been the find of the season. I know Abada's doing really well too, so it's difficult, but I think if you're looking at a player who might go on and do big things in the game, I think Jota is the one who, is a real class act. And the fact that he can be left on the bench and your team can still be 3-0 up at half time just shows you the kind of attitude and the hunger of the rest of them. Because these guys, it's a bit of a cliche, but they know they're starting the game at Fir Park. It's not you're starting the game at Fir Park as a punishment against one of the smaller teams. You're in there and that's an opportunity, and you've got to take it, because Jota's going to be in the team if you don't. Yeah. And these are the boys who are over your shoulder. It's amazing that James Forrest has been one of the most consistent and one of the most accomplished Celtic attackers for years and years and years. And I know he's got his critics, but he always puts up great numbers in terms of goals and assists, season in, season out, when he's not got injury problems. Him coming back in, nobody's barely mentioned a word about him, and actually James is kind of, I think he'd say it himself, he'd be fortunate to make a starting lineup at the moment, because there's just so many other options, and that's incredible. That tells you, number one, the depth that Celtic have, and number two, the quality that they have in these attacking areas. And as you say, try to pick a team, if we go back to that point, it's practically impossible, because whatever team he puts out is going to be really strong, and you couldn't argue really either way.
Well, I've picked my team, Graeme. You seem to agree. No doubt, Ange will make a mug of me by 6:30 tonight, and people will say, "What do you know, Haggerty?" And that's very true. You say that every day, but that's neither here nor there. Now, we'll leave with this one. Where was it? Grant, I just saw it a second ago. Grant says, beautiful football, quick ball movement, players in motion. No team can match Celtic style and philosophy in Scottish football. That remains to be seen, Grant. What is it, 13 left? We're ticking them down, Graeme. We'll see who's top come May, but it's another vital night in the Scottish Premiership.
I think if you look at the fixture list from now to the end of the season, Tony, you've got to say, like, where are Celtic going to slip up? You know, the way they're playing at the moment, I'd say the only real big challenge, well, this maybe been a wee bit facetious, but the only real big challenge is, for me, Ibrox. If you come through that, Celtic are the champions. You know, it's in their hands, which is a remarkable place to be, considering where they started at the start of the season. But I agree there with the comment. The football at the moment is great to watch. Callum McGregor said it yesterday. He's like, if we're playing at this level and playing this type of football, he's like, there's not many teams that will live with us, and you can't argue with that.
Well, you heard it here first. Graeme McGarry said it. I'll second it, and we'll reconvene tomorrow, and we'll see what happens at Pittodrie tonight. Enjoy the game, guys. Thank you for that contribution, Graeme. Really enjoyed that. Thanks for the comments, guys. Like reading them out, and have a good night, and all the best. Have a good day. Cheers.